Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Wednesday, February 4th regular meeting of the Board of Ed. At this time, I'd like to ask everybody to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for our traditional moment of silence. Thank you, everybody. Okay, so at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Larson for our superintendent's report.
Good evening, everyone. I hope everybody had they're not freezing. It has been quite cold outside. You can tell by the red sweatshirts in the audience. For those of you at home, we have our Polar Plunge participants here tonight. But to get us started, I wanted to just say, send a good luck to all of our Sachem cheer teams who left for nationals today. We hope they come back with some hardware. And we're going to get right into it. We have a bunch of presentations tonight. So I want to ask Ms. Frasina, Emily Frasina, to come up to the mic with her team from Polar Plunge so that we can recognize some staff and students tonight.
Push. Hello. Okay. Hello. My name is Rebecca Hoffman from Special Olympics New York. And on behalf of Special Olympics New York, I am honored to be here once again to recognize Team Sachem for their Polar Plunge efforts. If you remember, I was here last year and I said they had a record-breaking year and there's no way that they could ever top that or do it again, raising a total of $32,000 in 2024. But Team Sachem, they proved me wrong with the captain of Emily and co-captain of Bree. They raised $35,385 thanks to all of these brave Polar Plunge members. So when they're walking outside the past 2 weeks, I don't even think that cold was intimidating to them because they're used to swimming in the heart of November. But the difference it makes in the community, not only are you raising an enormous amount of funds that lets us just really have inclusive programs, not only in the school districts, but the community. What happens to these students when they graduate? Now they have these community programs that they're able to continue their success. So I really have no words. I get the chills every time I say it, but this school district is such a role model to all of New York State, not even just Long Island, because Port Jeff and Bayport and Sayville, they all think they're going to top you guys every year, but they don't even come close. So you guys should be proud of the teachers, the staff, and the students and the parents who really rally together to make a difference. So I would like to present them with this big fancy check for raising not 10,000, not 20, not 30, but $35,385. Would all of the Polar Plungers like to come up so we could take a group picture and celebrate?
wholesome picture. It is wholesome. Sometimes the angles mess me up, and I don't like when it's off center. That was good. Yeah.
I was just informed that as a board, as anyone can volunteer to help. So I challenge my fellow board members next year to do the polar plunge. You don't have to actually do it. You can hold a towel, Emily said. I'm sure any one of us can hold a towel, but I challenge all of us to do it. We should get involved with that.
That was perfect timing because Mr. Bauman said that we should all do it next year.
I'm in. I'm jumping.
It's impressive. So with the theme of some positive things happening around the district, I wanted to invite Mr. Ray Chopay from our phys ed department to come up and talk about the Adapt Thrive project.
Test. Good evening, everyone. Just wanted to thank everybody for having me. If you don't know who I am, my name is Ray Chopay, and I'm here to talk about and give an overview of something called the Adapt Thrive project. This is not a new curriculum, but it's a student-centered approach that highlights inclusive practices already happening in our schools and focuses on access, confidence, and participation. I'm going to begin with a short overview followed by a classroom video.
You want to go to the next one?
Thank you for coming in. Let me just ask, any questions from the board or, hold on. Anybody have questions? Yep. Good, Meredith.
Is this something that was out there and you brought it to us, or did you actually come up with this entire thing?
This is a program. The adaptive program has existed for forever in Sachem. This is just, I took this position this year, and I'm just trying to put a little bit of a twist on it, trying to make it something special and help the kids out.
I think it's absolutely phenomenal, and I really appreciate everything you're doing with it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good, Matt.
Is this is this like a curriculum?
No,
Okay.
this is not a curriculum. This is just spreading awareness to what's currently going on in the classroom and trying to highlight some of the special things that go on in the classroom that some people are just not aware of.
And does it encourage like blending of like regular ed, phys ed students into the
Correct.
Adaptive,
The
yeah.
most important thing that we work on is inclusion. That's the key. We want the kids to feel included and part of the class each and every time they're going to phys ed.
Well, as a special ed teacher, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good stuff.
I don't know if you've ever visited. There's a program, Challengers Athletics. Have you seen it in Bayshore? It's not the school district. It's
Yeah.
in the town. They do similar on weekends and stuff and use students to help facilitate the program. So while I'm watching this, it's incredible. I never even thought to bring it into the classroom. It's awesome.
Yeah,
That's
I
great.
appreciate that. The kids are really loving it and enjoying it. And again, the big thing is just trying to make sure that kids that are in some tough situations are included in class. They feel confident, they believe in themselves, and they feel part of everything.
And the people that facilitate it also learn.
Absolutely, yes. Thank you.
Yeah, hi, Ray. How do you share ideas across the buildings? Do you meet with the phys ed teachers?
So
or-
I travel. I'm in all of the elementary schools. I travel from building to building, and I work with each physical education teacher throughout the year, all the time. So
Okay, so the lessons learned are being shared across the whole.
yeah, this is something that occurs all the time in regards to physical education. I'm again the adapted teacher. I work with certain kids to just make sure that they're included in the lessons as well.
Because I could see you in the barriers could be just as simple as anxiety versus all the way down to
Yeah,
physical limitations.
Of course,
right?
yes. And again, all phys ed teachers throughout the district do a great job with this. And I work with some of the kids that have, significant disabilities that, again, the video shows kind of what my job is and what my role is in the classroom. But again, all the phys ed teachers are doing this all the time on different levels.
Well, we all appreciate obviously everything you're doing for the kids.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good, Meredith.
So just one more. I'm sorry. So during regular gym class, do special ed kids go to gym normally completely separate? I know that we have some different.
Yeah, I mean, there are many levels in regards to, students and what environment they're in. I'm the adaptive physical education teacher, and a student needs to qualify for adapted, and they usually have significant physical disabilities. But again, there are physical education teachers all the time, working and doing exactly what I'm doing and what I just showed. I'm just highlighting what I do on a daily basis in the classroom with my kids.
And that's all part of like our school day.
Yes.
Great. Because I know my son used to volunteer to do basketball with SEPTA. That's volunteer. This
Yeah.
is great because that was a great program that got some teenagers really involved.
Yeah.
And I think that you're bringing that where it doesn't have to be at different times. And
My big thing is I just want to spread awareness of all the great stuff that's going on in the schools. And some people aren't fully aware of some of the things that we have going on in Sachem. And, I think that these kids that I have that I'm trying to display, they really deserve to have, a light shined on them so people can really see the progress that they're making on their level.
And I love that they're with their peers. That's amazing.
Correct. Another thing I'm handing out, I didn't get to everybody, I'm handing out level up stickers. So it's not just my students that earn these stickers. When I'm in the buildings, I even give them to phys ed teachers all across Sachem. If anybody's doing a good job, it doesn't even have to be in the school. It could be on the outside. It could be a random act of kindness. They earn a level up sticker. And the kids really love stickers. And this is just something that I've been doing that I could see that the kids really enjoy. And if people, like parents, send me a picture and a reason why their son or daughter earned that sticker, I will feature them on the social media. And again, this whole thing is just about, inclusion, spreading awareness, things that have been going on in the schools. And I'm just trying to emphasize and highlight some of the amazing stuff that we have going on here in Sachem.
And what's the social media so we could all follow
It's
it?
on the stickers. The Instagram handle is Adapt Thrive Project. So if you do have Instagram, you could just type it in the search, and it will show some of the videos that I just had on the screen a moment ago. And you can just follow along with the journey and what we got going on in the adaptive world here in Sachem.
Great. Go ahead, Rob. Get two more.
Yeah, Ray, thanks for coming out tonight and sharing this with us. I heard so much about it. We've never seen it. So seeing it through video is kind of puts everything together. I noticed that in the video you had older kids that some are working with the young kids. Did I say that correctly?
So some of the schools have leaders. Some of the schools have leaders that come during their lunch periods to help out the younger students. Every elementary school has different, policies, and they do things that are a little bit different. But in that situation, yes, there are fifth graders that are helping out kindergartners in that school.
And do you ever get, 11th and 12th graders that, that come to the schools to?
I've tried, or I've had conversations with some of the movements like the You Matter, and that's something that, is somewhere this can go.
Sports teams?
Yeah, all of that's been thought about, and all of that is things, in the future that I would love to be able to incorporate into this program and what I'm trying to do. And again,
we have many, many kids that go off to be special educators, regular educators, kids that go into the education industry. I think it would be a perfect way to segue in to see what it's like to work with children.
absolutely.
And when my son was at Tamarack, they used to have a mentors club. They used to bring the older kids to Tamarack to actually do study skills with the younger kids. And I think it's important to get them involved. And if there's any way we could help you do that, just please let us know.
Yeah, that would be great. Again, it's a community effort, and it's about everybody helping each other out, and really helping these kids, and basically, what I've shown.
Thank you.
Steph, I think you had one more comment. And we'll-
Just to clarify, this isn't new. Adaptive phys ed isn't new to Sachem. We've been doing this for years. You're just celebrating it, making it more inclusive, pointing out how much fun it is, right? And then you can showcase it as a career because it is an addition on to being a phys ed teacher, getting the special ed designation, right? So
Correct.
you work with more population. So it's incredible. I love, you're almost selling it new, right?
I'm putting my own little twist
I
on
love
a
it.
program that existed.
I love it.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yes.
no, it's absolutely phenomenal.
Thank you.
I'm loving it.
All right. Thank you very much, Roy. Appreciate it.
Thank
Great
you.
job. Keep going, Mr. Larson.
Yeah, we have more presentations. We have a few more. A few more. So next up, I just want to invite Adam Kaufman and Ryan Regan up to from Wendell to go through the electric, the zero emission vehicle transition study report that their team compiled for us.
Also, I'll just make an announcement for those that may want to leave. Please feel free. Don't be obligated to stay, but your choice. Right? We've got budget presentations coming up, but we'll just give you the opportunity if you wanted to go home. So thank you.
Oh, got you. Yes, that I was confused at that too. Okay. It is. I think it is. Thank you. So yes, I think I have two tough acts to follow, but I'll do my best. I polar plunged when I played lacrosse in Plattsburgh, so I missed it. It was an amazing time. Anyway, changing topics for us today here. My name's Adam Kaufman. I'm with my colleague Ryan Regan, and we work for Wendell, which is an architecture and engineering firm that was contracted to investigate what it would look like to transition to zero emission vehicles for Sachem School District.
Can you just try to speak into the microphone so that people at home can hear?
Will do. Will
Thank
do. I'm trying my best.
Allison, is the microphone working? Because it doesn't sound like it. Oh, it is. Oh, okay. Thank you.
I can say it if you'd like to for next slide, if that helps. Okay. Gotcha. Cool. Okay, check one, check one. Okay, we can go to the next slide here. Interesting. Okay, cool. Yep. So a little agenda. I'll go through it. With some pace here. I know it's not necessarily the most exciting, and there's a lot on the agenda today. So just a high-level overview. We'll introduce who Wendell is, what the fleet electrification plan and New York State mandate is around your bus and transportation fleet. Some of the aspects of the study that we focus on with the bus routes, with the utility requirements. And really we get into what like a schematic design, how this project, if you were to move forward, could be phased out and what those costs look like. We can go forward. So again, my name's Adam Kaufman. I'm a project manager at Wendell. I've been with Wendell about 10 years. I lead a lot of our downstate zero emission vehicle work. A lot of that's focused in K through 12. There's lots of other school districts going through the same process that you guys are going through to evaluate what that would look like and how it would impact your district. I'm here with my colleague who did a lot of the technical analysis, Ryan, who's sitting right there in that seat. So we're here today and we're going to present on some of the findings that we had. Thank you. Thank you. So Wendell is a full service architecture and engineering firm, construction management and energy efficiency, focused in the Northeast with about 5 offices in New York State. Our local office is in Hauppauge. We have over 300, almost 400 employees now in 16 offices nationwide. This shaded regions is where we actually perform professional services. And if we go to the next one. Yep, so highlighting our presence in New York State. So we're actually headquartered in Williamsville, Buffalo. Go Bills. They should probably be playing this weekend, but unfortunately they're not. And again, that office in Long Island is in Hauppauge. So there is a mandate from New York State that is mandating the transition to zero emission vehicles. Zero emission is defined as really either hydrogen vehicles or battery electric buses. That's, no carbon emitting fuels can be used, no natural gas, no diesel, no gasoline. There's key dates here to focus on. One of them is coming up rather soon. It's in 2027. It speaks to when all new school bus purchases need to be zero emission. And again, that's really focused on battery electric buses. The second main date is 2035, which is the end date when they want all school districts' fleets to be converted to zero emission vehicles. The state is requiring, districts to identify barriers to the 100% 2035 goal of a full transition. And that's part of the reason that NYSERDA is leading these studies. One thing that's pretty relevant right now is in December, there was a 2-year waiver extension that was released through SED, which basically allows you to extend that first date, not the last date, the 2027 date. So there are extensions. Right now, there's one. There's planning to be a second one in 2029. That one will be much stricter of an extension, but this first one is extending when new school bus purchases are allowed to be done from 2027 to 2029. And again, this program that Wendell was contracted through is a NYSERDA program. New York Research and Development Authority is the state agency that's tasked with providing the technical assistance to school districts to be able to navigate this transition. Just to point out that Wendell was able to get Sachem School District 100% funding, so NYSERDA was actually able to pay for the entire study that we performed for you guys with all that valuable information. We can go to the next one. So high-level scope of work here, we really break it down into 8 tasks. It's really focusing on evaluating your site, on evaluating the routes, on evaluating the vehicles. So we kick off, we introduce the project team, we go through the timeline of the project. Task 2 is about data collection. John, who helped us very much with getting and providing us route information, providing us bus information, providing us information on your fueling, your electric costs, things like that. That's really collecting as much as we can about your district and then using it to be able to analyze. We go through all your routes, all your buses. We determine what's viable, what's not, what bus products or charger products would be the right selection for you. We go through, we put a charging strategy, which helps us identify what the overall power usage you would need at your site is. How much power do I need here? We talk to PSEG, your local utility, to determine if they can provide that amount of power. And then we put together really schematic, 30% designs and phase them out of how you could approach this transition. And then again, there's a detailed cost estimate in the report. It's a line-by-line estimate. It highlights each aspect of the transition and concept drawing and puts a cost associated with it. And there is escalation, assuming you might not build everything right at the beginning. Then we summarize it all in a very lengthy final report that you guys, Michelle got to enjoy and read through. It's like 200, 300 pages. So, great light reading. And we can go to the next one. So again, we looked at Sachem School District, as you all know, has owned and operated buses that you guys are responsible for, and you have contracted buses that you contract out. So really the focus of the study is on the owned and operated. That's what's really the most impactful for you guys in terms of evaluating power capacity and, what a concept plan could look like and where chargers could be located. But just highlighting the top, basically, we evaluated 40 buses that are in district or district owned. And there was a evaluation of 341 routes that are contracted out. That doesn't mean there's 341 buses, but there's 341 routes that the contractor needs to address. And what we did find is we're in Long Island. Obviously, we do these plans throughout the state. And for you guys using electric vehicles, the routes are not your limitation to being able to use electric vehicle technology. The distance of the routes are not too long to be able to drive with an electric vehicle. So we found that all of the routes, contracted and owned and operated, are viable to be driven with an electric vehicle. And I'll point out that our modeling uses worst case scenario. So we're looking at winter case conditions like today when it's really, really cold out, derating bus efficiencies, understanding safety factors and degradation. So again, there's a pretty, conservative approach to validating that the buses can be used.
Can I just ask you a quick question?
Sure.
So did you make that assumption based on the bus doing one route and back? Because I think, Michelle, our buses do multiple routes throughout the day, right? So
it's about route grouping. So if you do elementary school, middle school, high school in the morning, and then they come back and they charge in the middle of the day, and then they go back out and they do elementary school, middle school, high school grouping. So they are grouped into routes to your point.
got it. Thank you.
No problem. Again, we highlight some of the charging infrastructure, the sizes and the capacities of the chargers. We can move to the next one. Again, this just goes into the level of detail in the analysis. We work with lots of different agencies that do studies on, new technologies, specifically on battery electric bus technologies. There's parts of the battery that's not usable, the bottom 10%, the top 10%. There's an estimated degradation over the life cycle of the battery of about 10%. And the bottom chart shows efficiencies according to weather conditions. So in colder weather conditions, the efficiency drops off significantly. So those are the factors that we use when we model, does this route work? Will this bus be able to drive that route? And again, everything has an 11% safety factor. That's just to augment, hey, a route may change in a year. Okay, go to the next one. So your local utility. So we identify how much power you would need to charge your 40 vehicles. It's focused on your owned and operated routes. And that is 320 kVA. And you have that. So the left one is how much you need, 320 kVA. The right picture is a snapshot of the hosting capacity maps from PSEG. So PSEG actually has maps that tells you your local power availability at each of the sites throughout Long Island. And you have basically double what you would need to be able to charge all your buses here. It's 0.65 megawatts. It's really hard to read from here. So I think, basically just confirming that you have the power at the site for what you would need to charge the buses. Go to the next one. Thank you. Again, here is a concept plan. Essentially, it shows where you would pull power from the street, where, switchgear, transformers, trenching, conduit, chargers, dispensers, and buses would be located. And basically, it's phased out over 3 phases. So this is phase 1. And if you keep going, you could probably click through these rather quick. Yep. So this is just a more, a deeper screenshot that shows you a little bit of a better picture of each of the equipment. We also put in a fire protection plan. So we have, experts in fire protection who work with local insurance agencies and fire marshals to determine what the right approach is. Essentially, codes haven't kept up with the technology. Electric buses, when they catch fire, they're hard to put out. That's the idea. So you want to have like a higher rate of water to be able to put that fire out. And there's different technologies that actually floods the battery so that it's a safer, hey, you may lose the battery, that's about it. But essentially, there's a different approach to dealing with a fire with an electric vehicle. Thank you. This is phase 2, bringing on another addition to the fleet. And if you keep clicking through, I think there's one more phase. We might not have added it in there anyway. It is in the report, and it just phases on the 40 buses that essentially you guys own and operate. So when you're paying for things, we wanted to highlight there is a New York School Bus Incentive Program. It is sponsored by NYSERDA. And basically, they're going to pay you pretty significant money, at least for the beginning of your transition. So you guys were listed as a priority district when we applied for this study. I don't know how they make their priority designation, but essentially, since you are a priority district, you'll get up to 14 buses incentivized with this funding up here. So for type C buses, it basically speaks to the size of the bus. That's what type A, type C, and type D mean. They're all type A and C, right? Yep. So you're all in those first two categories here. The smaller buses are A, the longer buses are C. And essentially, they're going to give you, roughly $200,000 to $240,000 since you get that priority district bonus. They'd give you, $240,000 for a type C and, $200,000 for a type A bus as towards your new school bus purchase. And their goal is to get the new purchase of an electric school bus down to or lower than an existing diesel bus purchase. That's their goal with this incentive funding. And the next one, so that's on the bus purchase side. Then there's the charger voucher side, still through the New York School Bus Incentive Program. Again, so by doing this fleet electrification plan, you qualify for additional funding from $35,000 to $65,000. That's $65,000 per charger you buy, up to $2 million. And basically, that's going towards not just charger purchases. Charger purchases are not $65,000. It goes through the rest of the infrastructure, the conduit, the switchgear, the transformers, etc., that would be needed in order to provide power to those chargers. So this is the PSEG program. So again, PSEG incentivizes the transition to electric vehicles. They're providing 100% of the utility side, which is the USMR utility side infrastructure. That could be a new transformer that the utility actually owns to be able to provide the new service. And they're providing, so it's 50% for non-disadvantaged community. PSEG actually has different maps which designate what disadvantaged communities are. So it's either 50% or 20%, 50% of the utility side, 20% of the customer side, up to $50,000. So my point is they're contributing a certain dollar value towards the transition as well. Okay, this is kind of hard to read for me, but maybe you guys can see it better. Basically, it highlights the economics for each of the three phases out here. It breaks down the infrastructure costs, it breaks down the fire protection costs, breaks down the bus cost, does a comparison to if you were buying diesel buses. And just to highlight, the first numbers there, let's see in phase one how good my eyes are. So $890,000 for a diesel bus purchase for 13 diesel buses, taking into account estimated state aid, which we looked up. You guys can tell me it's different. So that's at 57%. So it's $890,000 of net impact to the district to buy 13 diesel buses. And the comparison for phase one with all the electric vehicles and electrical infrastructure and new infrastructure to power those buses would be $2.7 million. So about a $1.9 million difference for the first 13 vehicles to be able to make that transition. Again, this is just supposed to help you plan. As you go out on other phases, things change. We put a 6% escalation factor to each of the infrastructure costs in phase two and phase three. So from where we are today in 2026 to 2030, right, that's 4 times 6%, 24% inflation. That's what's expected in that number there. So we're trying to account for time, that things will cost more in the future. But essentially, it is supposed to help you understand what it could look like as a net impact to the district here, taking into account the infrastructure side and the bus side. If you go one more slide for me, it's a schedule. Basically, it shows that, they are giving you they are being pretty lenient on the first waiver and extension, but just to highlight that to actually make transition, it doesn't happen overnight. You can't snap your fingers. So to make progress and to go through phase one, it could take several years. And that's just from purchase of buses. That's just from purchase of transformers and equipment and lead times, in addition to design periods, review periods, approvals, things like that. So just to highlight that it doesn't happen overnight. And here is what a lot of districts have decided to, move forward with, essentially, is let's learn about the technology. Let's try and leverage any existing capacity we have on our electrical infrastructure that's at the site today. Let's get a couple buses under our fleet or in our fleet to be able to learn about, for driver training, for what's really involved from charge management perspective. So there's just about learning about the technology. I think the point is that the way to approach this is to do one bite at a time, right? To understand what we're getting into and do it in a slow process. So this is highlighting that based on our evaluation, you guys have the power capacity for 2 chargers and 2 buses, and leveraging without doing major infrastructure upgrades, without getting new transformers and switch gears, you guys could start to understand what having 2 electric buses in your fleet could look like. And basically the comparison at the bottom is to buy 2 diesel buses with your estimated state aid, it's $136,000. And to buy 2 buses in this pilot program with the incentive money, it's $188,000. And I think that's what I have to present today. So that's a lot of the work that we did here at Wendell, and I appreciate everyone's time and letting us present our findings.
Great, thank you. I'll open it up to the board for questions. Meredith and Rob.
So I appreciate you looking into all of this. There's a couple of questions that I have, and maybe you're not who I should be asking, but do the batteries lose power when they're not being used? So like we come back, we charge it overnight, and then by the next morning, has it lost power?
So again, there is probably a more detailed answer to this, but really the idea is if you left it out for months, yes, it would lose charge. But in that short period of days, it doesn't really lose any of its charge.
Okay. So like we park our buses on Friday, we charge them. By Monday morning, they should still get the max
Relatively
capacity.
close to where you left them, correct.
Okay. And how long do these batteries last? What's the warranty on them usually?
8 years.
Okay. And the warranty is 8 years, and they
Correct.
last 8 years?
The warranty is 8 years.
Okay.
And they could last longer. They say 12, but I think they stick to 8 years.
Do you know, I know 12 years from now things will be more expensive, but do you know how much it is to replace a battery when needed?
Depends on the bus, and I don't know it off the top of my head. I know buses are $350,000, and I'm sure there's a significant part of that's the battery, but I couldn't quote a number for you.
And are there any studies on how safe these buses are? I know in Italy they put everything, all their public transportation went over to electric. They had quite a few fires with people on the buses, and now they've put a moratorium on that and stopped it.
So I think there is a lot of safety studies. There are school districts that are operating electric bus
Yes.
fleets right now in the state of New York. I think that as technology is getting better, they're heavily focused on the safety aspects of it. I don't think I'm the right person to tell you about all those features and safety functions, but I know it is a focus of manufacturers and the state.
Yeah, Meredith, I think we'll probably have to have a whole nother conversation with the right people about all the things you're bringing up.
Definitely.
Right.
Thank you.
No
Rob?
problem.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you could answer my questions, but you'd mentioned that with 57% state aid on the buses. Okay, what's the turnaround on the aid? We're getting, in years past, if you purchase something, you got the aid back the following year. It seems like the state now is dragging their feet and moving it out 15 to 20 years. So what's the?
So I actually do know this answer,
Okay.
which is surprising. But I know right now, aid for your contracted fleet is in the next year. Aid for your owned and operated fleet is annual. And I'm going to say this word wrong. Annuitized. I can't say this. I'm sorry. It's over 5 years. It's paid out. Yes, thank you.
5 years.
And for electric buses, it's going to be paid out over 8 years.
So we're not going to get the reimbursement back on that until the end of the life of the bus.
Correct. They're essentially matching it to the life of the bus.
That's awesome.
I know as a penalty for not meeting the mandate, I know they are basically not providing transportation aid if that's what they've said essentially in the law of what the penalty would be if not met. But yes, that's the changes, and I actually surprisingly just spoke with SED about that, which is why I know it.
And the incentive program you mentioned, you said that we were a priority school. We were selected. This doesn't happen a lot whenever we select that as a priority school, but said buses were 200,000 and 230,000. What percentage of a discount is that on the cost of the bus?
So if you take a bus, take an average of 350, some of them are up to 400. So 250,000 off 400, call it. So you could call it a 65% discount.
That's only in the first 13 buses?
14, yes.
14 buses. And you'd mentioned that 2 buses are at $890,000 phase 1.
If that's Yes, I think that was the number. 890, was that right? I think that was, yeah, that was the diesel buses for 13 diesel buses after state aid. I think there was
But then-
188,000, which was,
880,000.
I think it's 188. You want to go back to it? Is that possible? Okay, that could be right. That could be right.
So 890 is what the cost is, but in phase one, and that you had mentioned that was to kind of get an idea how you like the electric buses to get acclimated with them and whatnot. So $880,000.
Go to the next one.
But we could purchase 13 diesel
One
buses.
more, sorry.
13 diesel buses for 880,000.
So 808, yes, and that is without the incentive money that they're trying to provide to you, and that also is without state aid. So your 13 diesel buses is with state aid. It's a little bit of a different comparison, but
Do you remember the total cost? I did go through that 200-page document that you did send. I went to the important pages with the price.
Okay.
Phase 1, 2, and 3, somewhere around, if I'm correct, $40 to $60 million. That's correct. If we were to replace all of our buses and do all of the upgrades, the transformers, and implement all of the charges, so it's 23 million. I remember the number was huge. Yeah. All right, I appreciate it. Thank you.
no
Steph?
problem.
Our diesel buses, how long do they last right now? And I know some of them are,
That's a question,
Chicken.
Michelle, right? Because we just refreshed our
Yeah.
fleet over the last couple of years, right? So
We've been buying gas buses, right, Joe? We've been buying gas buses, not diesel. But
Oh,
they're all
sorry.
relatively new within the past 6 years.
how long is the lifespan of one of them? How long have we used, give
we-
us the shortest gas bus we've kept and the oldest gas bus we've kept, like until they
20
break down.
years. Yeah, over 20 years. we've
Yeah,
had
so
buses.
if we're buying an electric bus that needs a new battery in 8 years, it's a significant amount more than buying a gas bus, because you might have to replace 2.5 buses by the time you get to the 20 years. What's our oldest bus? Do you guys know?
like 20,
It's 20,
24
and then
years.
normally do we have to replace a bus randomly younger than that?
I don't think. I mean, we've had a couple of lemons,
Right, like
that
random,
didn't
but
last
not
as long,
not
but
regularly,
not
right?
regularly,
So
no.
my concern is going forward, we're going to have to replace these buses more often than our gas bus. And again, we're all sitting here dealing with finances all the time. How do we afford that even at a 60%, discount?
great question. I don't know. That's probably not for you to answer, but yeah,
Oh, he was helping with the 8-year
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
Mike.
So I hope the irony here isn't lost on everybody, right? We just fought a fight to prevent lithium-ion battery storage facility from being within a half a mile of our schools, and now we're talking about putting our kindergartens to sit on top of them. Okay, and it's not the buses themselves; it's the accidents, the collisions, right? But be that as it may, the other concern that's not here is the cost of insurance, and I can tell you from firsthand experience that the insurers are apprehensive about these buses being parked next to each other during charging and at night, because once one goes, they all go. So that's a cost. I would want you to ask the insurers about the increase in coverage. Not that a diesel bus can't light up another diesel bus, it can, but these things, they're like, once one goes on thermal runaway, the next one goes, the next one goes, the next one goes. You saw just like those Tesla vehicles in the parking lot. So I'd want to know what the additional cost is for insurance as well. That should be factored into our overall cost, because you don't get state aid on that, I don't think, right? So, but just a couple of things to consider.
Matt.
I think Meredith was next.
Yeah,
Oh,
she
okay.
went. So
So I thought the same thing, Mike, when I saw the picture of all the buses lined up next to the school. Thought the same thing. I just, these unfunded mandates are infuriating. And also, it's hard because they're so underused. These buses are traveling so empty. To spend that much money on underused, it's just, yep, that's it.
Meredith, go ahead.
Do you know, did you do a cost analysis between the difference of what we spend on gas per school year and what we will spend on our electric increase per year, because obviously charging all these buses is going to cost us a lot of money in electric consumption.
So they are very efficient. So when you look at a fueling perspective, they are going to save you money, especially because PSEG has a incentivized rate structure for the electricity used to fuel the buses. As an operations perspective, there's other additions, right? Like there is charge management to make sure they're charging at the right rates and things like that, which is an added cost. So from an operations perspective, we typically call it a wash. So I don't think you should expect the savings necessarily, but they're much more efficient with the way they use fuel and the way they drive on the road. So from an emissions or from an efficiency perspective, they're much smoother, and the regenerative braking allows them to harness some of that kinetic energy and recharge the batteries as they're on the road. So that part is typically a benefit, and then there are negatives in the operations category that essentially is viewed as a wash.
Would we only be saving money if PSE&G were giving incentives? Because as more and more and more and more people start to have electric vehicles and electric bus fleets and use all sorts of stuff, they're not going to be able to keep incentivizing everyone. It's going to bankrupt them at some point. So did you do a cost analysis with zero?
It's more of a rate structure, but the analysis is using the rate structure that would be available to you through PSEG today.
Okay. And do these have to be do you plug them in at night and let them charge overnight? They don't need to be unplugged at some point during the night?
So they are supposed to be plugged in. They stop charging, right? That's part of the charge management, that they'll charge in an optimal way. So when they're full, they'll stop. The idea with charging is you'd like to charge low and slow. The lower you charge, the healthier it is for the battery, the safer it is for the vehicle. So to the point of, if you're charging over 8 hours at night, you wouldn't charge the full rate of the charger. You charge at a very low rate over time to make sure that it's just getting to 100% in the morning type of thing. That's the ideal version. If you did get to 100% early, it would stop charging.
Okay, so it doesn't need a human being watching it overnight.
Correct.
Okay, Rob and then Mike.
I know some school districts are going to this. How are you dealing with the addressing distance and trips? We have a track team that's going to New York City to compete at the Armory. Right? It's a trip into the city. It could take an hour and a half. The bus is going to sit there for 4 hours, and they're going to load it up, and they're going to come back. We have trips that sometimes are even further in New York City, where we're using our school buses. So what are we doing? What is the distance?
So there is a distance limitation on these vehicles for sure. I think roughly 65 miles is what we like to say. And that's in cold weather. Again, all these models are the most stressful, right? A bus, they'll tell you, if you look at a cut sheet, which is true on an ideal day, right? In ideal driving conditions, they'll go 200 plus miles. Again, from what we're looking at here, we're trying to give you a conservative look at it. So 65 miles is about that limit. And to your point, if they went to a spot where they weren't able to charge, you would want to look at that as a cumulative distance. Right. So to your point, there may be trips that electric vehicles are not able to drive.
So we would have to contract out with a coach bus, a situation like that. Because if every school district has to do this, how many charging stations would you possibly have to accommodate, a tournament or a showcase or whatever that sporting event is,
I think the extreme parts of the district is part of what the state's trying to understand too, so they can, give waiver to particular parts and pieces that you guys are making the case about that may be difficult for you guys to accommodate. But, a lot of that is reasons to understand what are the limits, right? So that it can be communicated.
The other question I have is just about wearable items on these buses. Obviously, these buses are much heavier. There's even some concerns, even from our local legislators and politicians, that we don't even know if our roadways can handle the weight of the buses. But on top of that, I know that several folks that I know that have electric vehicles go through tires very, very quickly because of the weight of the vehicle. These buses, obviously very, very heavy. Has there any study been shown on the wearable items that would have to be replaced, and what the cost would be to, per bus, average life of a bus tire?
I actually don't know the answer to the average life of a bus tire versus a normal diesel bus, to be frank. And for the viability of driving them on the roads, I know they all have to meet and comply with forget the agency that restricts that and regulates that. And so I think that is a misnomer out there that they wouldn't be able, or they are too heavy for the roadways that we have here.
Yeah.
Okay, Mike?
Just a question about the charging. I guess they're smart chargers, right? So that when the battery is full, they stop charging. They go into like a trickle charge mode, I would presume, right?
If needed, yeah,
If
well,
needed.
they'll stop.
Do we have to leave them plugged in over the summer?
You don't have to leave them plugged in if you're not using them. To the point earlier, if you leave them not plugged in over a long enough time, the battery wouldn't be fully charged, essentially, right? You may lose some of that charge, but you do not need to leave these plugged in, over extended periods of time.
Because Meredith touched on this too. I mean, I've never seen a PSE&G rate go down, right? But I have seen gas prices go down. And, let's face it, if the gas goes down $1, we can save $250,000, right? Roughly for $1, right? We use about 250,000 gallons a year. So that's never going to happen again. Nor can we shop for a supplier, right? Because the only supplier is a sole source person whose rates are not going to go down. So don't ever anticipate saving money like that. Just another one of those things you have to really consider in making this transition. But
So, hey, Michelle, so it sounds like we've got about 9 years before the state mandate kicks in, right? So from your perspective, if we had to move forward, when do we start this?
As Adam was saying, in their plan, in the full report, there's a phase in over a
Yeah.
number of years that we could look for. I think the first phase was 2027 through 2029, and do it in 2-year increments, getting us up to.
And then what do we do with,
2035.
let's just play this out. So we just, most of our buses are fairly new. What do we do with those? Who's going to buy them if they can't run them on the roads down the road, right? So the
We-
value of that asset sort of,
Right, we would put them
you
out
know.
to bid like we do with all of our
Right.
buses. You get surprisingly a lot of individuals. I don't
They
know
want
what
buses.
they're doing with those buses,
Okay.
but they
Yeah.
buy them.
Rob's going to buy when he's taking a road trip when he retires. Okay. Yeah, interesting. Okay. I had one more, but no, go ahead, Steph. And then,
Hold on, I lost it. Wait a second.
yeah.
It'll come back to me. Hold on.
But again, it sounds like we've got to schedule, this has to be an ongoing conversation now, right? So this was great
Can I go back?
presentation.
It came back.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead
I'm
real
sorry.
quick.
It's
and
a
then
quick
let's
one.
start winding
Um,
down because we got more.
So because of our special circumstance being so big and possibly going far trips, would we get like a waiver to own a couple of gas buses as like a backup?
So I think the state is talking. I don't have the answer to that. Again,
Okay.
I don't represent state education department,
Right,
but
right.
I think they are trying to evaluate. Right, there's waivers and extensions, and then there is exceptions essentially, and so they're trying to evaluate what that criteria would be to qualify for some extreme circumstance. But at this
Budget
point,
wise,
it's not
that's
available.
our concern is budgetary. We don't want to make another company, have to spend more money just to accommodate something and provide more for our kids that we've been giving them the whole time,
Yeah.
and then we have to
Meredith, you
rent
got one?
out.
You got one more?
Michelle, so we were buying new buses in phases. What was it, 3 a year?
It varied. It was 2 or 3 a year.
Okay, so 2 to 3 a year we were buying to replace an older fleet.
Yes,
Now, I remember last year was the last time that we had to do that.
we bought 2 buses.
We bought 2 buses last year. When is the anticipated date of replacement of the first 2 buses that we did in the phases? It's not for another like 15 years, right?
We've had buses that are more than 20 years old. I mean, our mechanics take very good care of them, so we can get quite a few years out of them. So it would be down the road.
Any other questions, guys? All right. Thank you very much. Great
No
job.
problem. Thank you. I appreciate everyone's time. Again, let us know if there's anything else you need help with.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Just one thing to add, maybe the legislative committee wants to, continue to put this on their list to advocate to our elected officials of all these challenges, right? So,
What would we actually be
let's-
advocating for?
well, let's
Could
get
we-
to that during the legislative committee.
Yeah.
I wanted to get that out there
Okay.
just because, right? We've got one more presentation, Mr. Larson, I believe.
Yeah, I can feel John Grillo's eyes on me
I
right
see
now
him.
that
He's-
he's been
he's
sitting there that
angry,
long.
so.
And he's probably thinking that he's not my favorite for putting him fourth, I think, in the rotation. We
He's
had to
got-
do the
he's-
students first. I'm sorry. So
He's got more good news for us, so let's
he
get him up
does.
here
So
to present.
John's here tonight just to give us a breakdown of the pressure testing, the recent pressure testing on the North Pool, and the recent inspection. And I'm sure he'll answer any questions from the board members tonight.
Good evening, everybody. So, as you know, Pasquale had asked me to take a look at the condition of the North swimming pool the last couple of months. We brought in an outside vendor, and they did pressure testing on the return lines, the suction lines, basically what they do is they open up one end and they put air in, and then they plug up all of the other drains, and they try to put air pressure into the lines to see if the pressure will hold. And in every case, the pressure failed. So they also then took the grates off, and I don't know if you saw this report, the photographs. The piping that's underground, under the slab, in and around the pool, is all cast iron, and the life expectancy of cast iron is like 50, 55 years. Nowadays, if you were going new, or the pool at East was probably PVC Schedule 80, really heavy duty PVC, corrosive resistant, stands up to chlorine, that kind of stuff. So we're at the point where the pool piping is at the end of its life. And once you have to do a replacement of that size, we have to bring everything in the pool up to code, which means right now the pool changes water every 8 hours. We now have to up that to every 6 hours. So the gutters have to be literally cut out and removed. The depth of the diving board in the deep end, pre-1987, the depth could be 10 feet. Now it's got to be 12 feet. So one of the other things we would have to do is literally dig out the bottom of the pool, drop it down to 12 feet, so we can meet the new requirements, or they won't even sell you a diving board anymore. So there's really no other way that we can Band-Aid, fix it, repair, anything like that. We did years ago, I guess it was about 15 years ago, we did a lot of the pool filtration equipment. We did a lot of replacements of that. That is all good, and that can remain except for the surge tank. But the rest of it would have to be completely ripped out and replaced, and basically rebuild the entire natatorium.
I'll open it up to the board for questions. I'm sure there may be. John, just a quick question. So what's a ballpark on that? We're talking
All in, you're probably close to $4 million.
$4 million. Wow. Okay. And what's the duration of something like that? Just curious.
Another 50, 60 years.
And then duration of the project to do that?
You would probably take probably 8 to 9 months
8
to
to
do
9
all
months.
in.
And I think this pool is just at its life expectancy, right? So it's really 55, 60-year-old pool, right?
It's as old as Rob is.
Yeah.
I was there when I got there.
I swam in it in elementary school, 40 some odd 50 years ago, right? So yeah. Meredith?
I didn't see it in here, so forgive me if it is in here. But did you take into account making everything VGB compliant, which is like all the main drains and all that?
Correct. That would have to be as part of it now.
Okay.
So the VGB is the Virginia Graham Baker Act. A little girl years ago was literally her hair to the main drain. So now you have to separate the main drain so you don't have 100% suction capacity from one drain. So all of that has to be upgraded, correct?
And that's all in this
Yep.
estimated project. And you say 8 to 9 months of a project, but it has to be, you don't mean 8 to 9 months from the time it gets approved. You mean you'll be able to get it approved and then do the actual work within 8 to 9 months.
Yeah, the actual work would take about 8 to 9 months. I mean, once you had, if this is something the board wished to consider, voter approval, submit to the state education department, and then construction itself would probably take the 8 to 9 months. Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board?
Hey, John, what's the obviously you work in a lot of school districts, and this must happen in other districts. Are you experiencing it in the other districts where the pools are failing, and what are those districts doing?
We just finished Connecticut, and we're opening bids in 2 weeks for Long Beach. Pretty much the same kind of thing.
So these districts are replacing.
Yeah. But I mean, those both are not in the benefit where you do have an alternate means with a second pool. But we are doing full replacement because we can't touch them and repair them unless you paint the walls and replace the lights.
And now we're going to receive 76% back on that. Is that correct? Building aid? Because we're to incorporate into our curriculum.
And then over the life of the project, 15 years.
Yeah. So it's 15 years. We'll get that, whatever it is, 76, 20. We're going to be responsible for 25%. So the pool is really going to cost us $1 million. It requires voter approval. Right? This is not something that we have the ability to do right now because we don't have $4 million lying around. We have $90 million with capital projects that we need to do.
About 127.
Yeah.
Something like that.
What is it up to? It's up to 160.
160 million.
Yeah. So it's added to the list, and obviously there's a priority because the pool's used. It's used by a community. It's used by our swim teams, our swim clubs. So look, I guess we have to have a future, another discussion. But reality of it is that it'd be hard to leave one pool, open in one building, and then close the pool in the other building.
Rob, what I'd like to do is, I know, I'd like to have this discussion next board meeting, so I think everybody can think about this and open it up for discussion because you're making good points. But
Yeah, my only suggestion
Yeah.
is that, it's not, and we could, it's just thought for, when we take it forward to the next meeting, is that if we're going to do something like this, obviously it's something that would have to be done soon, and we don't want to leave an empty, an empty hole in a building, is that what you probably consider is putting it out for approval with a referendum, because we just don't have $4 million lying around. So the community would have to, approve it, and then we'd have to bond it out and put it out to a capital projects loan. We just don't have that. We don't have that money. We have roofs that need to repair. We have everything that needs to be done as well. So this was an unexpected cost, unanticipated.
Any other questions for the board? Okay. Yeah. So just to add on to what Rob said, I think, we don't have a full board here. I think the goal of tonight was for John to kind of validate what they found. And I think the expectation should be next meeting, perhaps the board has an in-depth discussion on how do we move forward and if we move forward, right? So Allison, if we can get that on for the future, for next week or 2 weeks from now, that'd be great.
The other thing, and maybe you can answer this question, Andy, or what do we obviously that room is obviously not usable right now, right? What are we doing to secure that room so that we're preventing people from getting into there? Is there something that we're doing that? Okay.
But it's normally locked anyway, right? Because it's a pool. Yeah. So.
I just want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to make sure a student doesn't get in there. If we know if a student wants to get in, they're going to find a way to get in.
And we're using the same precautions we would if the pool was in use when there isn't supervision there. So that pool, all the doors are locked, anything that's close to the locker room exits, all locked. Security is usually doing loops as part of their sector to make sure that no one's
You
in
have
that area.
access to the pool from the locker room?
In the corridor. So locker room doors, and then you have a pool entrance separated by a corridor, but separate set of doors. Yeah. Not in the pool. Yeah.
Aren't we, if we replace it, aren't we going to need that hole? Yeah, so, yeah. To fill it too is expensive. I was thinking more of securing it with, those portable gates that, can be bolted to the walls, just to keep people out, make sure kids can't have absolutely no access to it. Yeah.
Yeah, and the rules for that is that if you do have cameras in instructional spaces, like we have them in our gyms, but they're not turned on during the school day, but they are, obviously we use them for sporting events and things like that. So you can add the cameras in there because it's not being used as instructional space.
The only concern is we made it that locker room because somebody was in and they couldn't get out.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think there's been a rule from the state for quite a few years at this point where you can't use those lockable gates in corridors or entrances or exits to block egress. So
Great. Thank you, John.
You're
Appreciate
welcome.
it.
Good night,
All right.
everybody.
Good night. You got one more, Mr. Larson, right?
we do. The most exciting one, Ms. Sarakis starts off officially tonight with her first board presentation of the season, or third unofficially, but first official board presentation.
Okay, so like Mr. Larson said, we're going to get right into our first or third official budget presentation. This presentation is really going to focus on the revenues because that's really what we know right now. And one of the items I added into the discussion of revenues is the combined wealth ratio because that has come up in a lot of our conversations. So I just wanted to show how it does factor into all aspects of the state aid. Then we will, of course, look at state aid based on the governor's run, the tax levy calculation, other miscellaneous revenues, reserves, and fund balance. I will give a brief overview of where we are with the expenditure budgets right now, and then we'll talk about some next steps. So first, the combined wealth ratio. That has come up in a lot of our conversations, and we talk about how that ratio has been increasing, where we say Sachem appears to be getting wealthier, which is causing many of our aid categories to be reduced because the state share will go down as our wealth goes up. So just to look at the formula, it looks at combined wealth ratio measures the property wealth in the district and also income. So we start with the district property value, the full assessed value of the community. That's homes, that's businesses, that's everything in the district. That figure comes from the state comptroller's office. That is divided by district enrollment. And when you see, I'll show the actual calculation on the next slide. It's not just a straight, what is our enrollment, today in our K-12 classes. It does provide some extra weighting for our special needs students. So you'll see that number is higher than you would expect, but it is the current number. And then that item gets divided by the statewide average of all property in the state. Then we take half of that and we look at income. So from the Office of Taxation and Finance, we get the total district income divided by that same enrollment number. And then that gets divided by the statewide average, cut in half. And you add those two pieces together, there's your combined wealth ratio. So when we look at this current year, our combined wealth ratio is 0.89. That is an increase from 0.84 from last year. So that is significant because that just means that the amount that the state is sharing with us is decreasing. Last year, the state share was 47%. This year, the state share is 45%. And these are really things out of the district's control because we look at our, the assessed value of the entire Sachem community divided by that 15,000 is our per pupil. The state average for property wealth is $917,300 per pupil. In Sachem, our property value per pupil is $920,000. So we're above the state average there. So that's putting us above a 1.0 in that factor. But when it comes to income, we're slightly below the state average. State average on income is approximately $293,000. Sachem is coming in for the 25-26 year at $228,000. So those two values kind of offset each other, but we're at a 0.89. I looked at where we were last year with the 0.84, and the income portion of that for the state last year was $827,000. So the state income, the average increased 10%, but the average income for Sachem increased 17%. That's why we're seeing such an increase in the overall ratio. As far as the income portion of it went, the state value of income went down for this year. It was a decrease of over 5%, but the income in Sachem increased 1%. So both of those categories now were working against us this year, and that's why we saw an increase in our wealth ratio. But you can see any one of those factors can change. Everything within Sachem could stay the same, but if the statewide average were, say, to go down, we would see our ratios go up, and that affects the amount of aid that we're getting. So it's just another formula that really is not wholly in our control, but it affects everything we do because it impacts our aid. So that combined wealth ratio, how does that really impact us? It's factored into our foundation aid. There are 4 different tiers that take this combined wealth ratio into account. Public high cost, excess cost. We get about 49% aid on this expense for our high cost kids. For private excess cost, it's weighted about 85% into the combined wealth ratio. And then transportation aid, there are also 3 tiers. So it really does factor into all aspects of our aid. So any questions on that? I know that was a lot, but I know we talk about it all the time.
Okay, so because I panicked when I read this afternoon, I just wanted to have you explain, not me, to the community, that the property value isn't home value; it's including commercial and industrial values. But now it begs the question: is the income, is that also included into business income, or is that individual income?
From New York State Taxation and Finance. So everybody now is doing their taxes for the 2025 year. When you check off Sachem as your school district, that's where that is being reported from.
But that's a person making money, not a business. Like, is that personal income, or is that also all the businesses in Sachem making money?
That's personal income, because as a
Okay.
business, you're not, a corporate tax return is not selecting a school district. on a
Okay.
corporate
All
tax
right. So
return.
then that is, so they assume each pupil's family is making 228,000.
No,
Yeah, that's
district-wide, the weighted average of our students is 15,320. So if you took all of the income throughout the district, we're saying the average in Sachem
right.
is $228,887 per pupil. So all of the income in Sachem supports each student to the tune of $228,000, whereas on the state level, it's $293,000 per pupil
So we look poorer there,
on income
right? But we
Well,
look wealthier on.
on home
property.
property values.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thanks.
When you talk about property values, that's that $14 million number that you see there.
14 billion. Yeah.
And it says that Sachem property value per pupil is $920,000.
Mhm.
Right? Do they take into the value of the property, like say like Sachem, the Rock Hub?
It's all property within the district. So, yes.
So in a big facility like that got a taxes taken care of, was there any exclusion to like that property?
I would have to look into that. I just know that we get that figure from the comptroller's office. I don't know if they consider pilots within that. I don't know that they.
I would think that if they were, tax free, for a period of time, that wouldn't come into the value of, into the equation.
I'd have to look into that. But that number is the assessed value. That's not the taxable value. That's the assessed value. So whether they have a pilot, whether they're fully on the tax rolls or not, that's what their value is. This one? Okay. Okay. All right, so on to state aid. So this is the same as we talked about at the prior meeting. This was from the governor's executive proposal. We are seeing an increase in our foundation aid. Now remember here, we're comparing to the governor's proposal from last year because when we adopted our budget, there wasn't a New York State budget at the time. So we had to adopt based on the governor's proposal. So we're really comparing governor to governor proposal. But we are seeing an increase in our foundation aid. We are called being on the formula. Right now, there is a hold harmless or a due minimum that districts that are receiving wouldn't have seen an increase in their foundation aid. They are getting a 1% increase this year. We are not in that situation, but we are seeing decreases in some of our other aid categories, some of them related to our combined wealth. Some of them you'll see in our building aid because we had quite a few projects fall off where we received our full 15 years. We did just submit about 12 projects between November and December, and those were just processed by the state. So we could see an increase in our 25-26 building aid. So that's something we're still keeping an eye on. But so we are seeing, budget to budget, an increase of roughly 2.45% or $3.4 million in state aid. I do break out the UPK and show that on the bottom there because UPK is not a general fund aid. That is accounted for in the special aid fund, and it's strictly for UPK. We cannot use that for anything else. And I'm going to go into some of the changes to UPK because that was a big thing in the governor's proposal. Right now, for the 28-29 school year, districts have to offer a UPK slot to every 4-year-old child whose parents request it, regardless. Every child who requests it, whether you do it in district or through a CBO, community-based organization, we have to provide that spot for every 4-year-old whose parents request it, beginning in 28-29 school year. There is no cap on the amount of aid received or the number of slots districts can provide. The number that we're showing that was in our aid run, the $3.5 million, they increased the funding per student up to $10,000. So that would equate to 355 students. That's really just a placeholder right now for the state because they had to show something on the aid runs. There really is no cap. You can service as many 4-year-olds in your community that you're able to and still be aided on that. There will be no, this doesn't apply to us, but no half-day UPK allowed starting in 28-29. We have a full-day program currently, so that doesn't really impact us. And this new funding, the way it's being funded with the $10,000 per student or your select foundation aid, whichever is higher. For us, it's the $10,000. Does away with all the other UPK funding. It does away with the state grant. It does away with the expansion grants. Now it's just this one allocation.
So what happens in a case like ours where you have more 4-year-olds than you can house, than you could physically house?
You would have to look at outside organizations and then you would pay the funding.
So
to
we
those
would pay a
organizations.
private UPK or private
Correct.
preschool
Correct.
for those students.
Right. That's starting in 28-29.
Yeah.
We don't have to do that right now. Right now, we still can do
And it
our
only
lottery.
applies to 4-year-olds. So essentially, if we didn't have enough seats, because right now we do 3 and 4-year-olds in ours, right? In our
No,
UPK?
just 4-year-olds.
Oh, we're just 4-year-olds? Oh, okay. Never mind.
So, you said they were getting rid of all other grants. Does that open the funding up to be able to use it to expand so we can accept all students? Say yes. Say
Yes.
Yes?
Yeah. So basically, the governor has confirmed through our inquiries that the expansion grant is really what you're talking about, right? That additional grant that we keep calling the state saying, when are you going to open up applications for it again?
Well, the legislative committee is going crazy with this.
Yeah. So they're eliminated. Basically, what the governor did was they eliminated the expansion grant and spread that from what it looks like, spread that funding out to all districts for the consolidated grant. So now the rules change as well. Somewhat. We're still waiting on confirmation on that.
Does that possibly mean for 28-29, we could expand UPK to accept all students? Because we have to, but we could actually do it without as additional hardship?
To Meredith's point, now what it does, that $10,000, so let's just say we couldn't house based on space. That's one of our limitations, but
Right.
all the other limitation was our per pupil allotment not being enough to pay the outside organizations. Now we would be able to use that $10,000 if we didn't have the space to renovate to accommodate UPK students. Now we can afford to pay out to local preschools.
Is that only for 28-29, or is that for this?
Starting in 28-29.
Okay.
So who knows how long it'll go for, and if I'm assuming that's going to be for the foreseeable future.
Okay, great.
Just Michelle, you'd mentioned that there's no cap now. If we have 450 people, 450 kids that are requesting for their UPK, and we only have enough funding for 350. Okay, are we going to be reimbursed for the additional 100 students?
No, it's the students you're serving now up until 28, 29. So if that 355, that was that point in time that when they looked at the 24, 25 year, we had 355 students. So they put that as a placeholder and said, we have $3.5 million for Sachem. If we had 400 students and we could house 400 students, we
They'd
would
give
get
us-
the $4 million.
But after
Yeah.
28, 29, we're going to allow every student
We
to have
have
full day
to.
UPK. Are they going to fund it?
Yes,
They're going to fund it completely.
that's what they say.
And to give you kind of perspective too, as of this afternoon, we already had 456 families submit to be part of the lottery this year. And we've only been open since Monday.
Parents couldn't, let's say there was this magic pill and we were able to house every single UPK student that we had in our district, the parents couldn't then say, well, I want my kid to go to this private preschool, you have to pay for it. They couldn't do that, right?
No.
Okay.
Okay, so everybody's favorite, the property tax levy cap formula.
One last question.
Sure.
UPK. We have a set price that we pay for UPK per kid. Now that they raised the allocation, $10,000, is that price still similar, or did they increase our cost per pupil?
You talking what we pay out to or scope to our CBO? Their price is what it takes them to operate. So whatever the price is, we know that the price is going up. Not the $10,000 by any means. It definitely went up, but it's not. We're not going to get this. We're not going to get blindsided with now it costs $10,000 to educate kids.
Okay, so the tax levy. We've said it before, it's that 13-step formula. Seems a little complicated, so I'm going to try to break it down a little bit differently this time. Because there's that misnomer that it's a 2%, and it's sometimes over 2%, sometimes it's under 2%, but we're going to walk through the calculation because I used different graphics this time. So the start of the formula is our tax levy in the prior year, and we multiply that by the tax-based growth factor. The tax-based growth factor comes from New York State. It's the expansion, new construction, and things in your district. The other item up there are reserves that have to be reserve offsets, which we do not have. That's for districts that levied more than the formula said that they could without receiving the 60% override. If district does that, they have to put that extra fund into a reserve. We don't have that. So for Sachem, we start with the current year levy, which is $216.5 million. We multiply it by the tax-based growth factor. That's where we get the $217 million. Then the next step is to add the pilots from your prior year and subtract out your capital exclusion. Capital exclusion is our debt service, our transfer to capital, less our building aid. Same with transportation, less the transportation aid. So when we factor that in, we come down to the $207 million that you see here. We add the 1.4 million in pilots and we subtract out the 11.7 million in the capital. Then we move on to the allowable levy growth factor. That's that 2%. It's 2% or the CPI, whichever is less. So for school districts that have a fiscal year that starts July 1, we use the calendar year, the previous calendar year's CPI. So for us, that was 2.7%. So we are limited to using 2% in this calculation. And that's where that 2% comes in. And you'll see that the 2% multiplied by that 207, we're up to $211.4 million. And then we subtract out the pilots for the 26-27 year. And that's where we come up with our allowable levy limit before exclusions. That brings us to $209.9 million. We go on from there. We add in our capital tax levy for the current year, the 26-27 year that we're looking to fund. We don't have an exclusion for our retirement systems because those items are not going up by the 2%, more than 2%, and we don't have any torts or judgments against us. So that brings our calculation to show that the tax levy increase is at $5.1 million, or a 2.3729% increase. So that's where we would be for 26-27. So that's it all in that one slide. A couple of things to note here. Included in that 26-27 capital exclusion is that $9 million transfer to capital that we include in our budget each year to fund renovations and repairs throughout the district. We'll go into more detail on the projects that we're proposing be included in that $9 million at the next meeting. But if the board is in agreement, I will file this with the state comptroller's office. We have to file our tax levy by the March 1st deadline. That doesn't mean it can't be changed. We can always go back in, unsubmit, make with it, and any revisions that we need, and then resubmit it before June.
Mike?
Michelle, I think this is an important slide because I know this comes up a lot, right? This is why you always tell us that if we try to reduce our capital projects, it doesn't help us.
Correct.
Because if you reduce the capital transfer, you have to reduce it out of that line, which just reduces the amount of money. So that's why when she says, let's not do the capital, we suggest, I'll say collectively, our community says, don't do the capital projects, doesn't help because you have to it's just a subtraction to get out of that
Right.
line.
It comes out of the expenditure side, but it also comes off of this, which is our revenue side. So it's a wash. So if the board is in agreement, I'll file this tax levy with the state comptroller's office. And then, like I said, if any revisions need to be made, we can always go back in and unsubmit and resubmit before June. Yeah, yep. Okay, thank you. All right, and this graphic just shows where we have been since the tax levy formula came into effect in the 2012-2013 school year. And you'll see we were below the 2% for quite a few years. And then come the 22-23 school year is when inflation took off and we saw a 4.7% increase in the CPI, but we were limited to that 2% number in that formula. And then the following year, there was another increase of 8%. We were limited to 2% and so on, 4% the year after that. So all of that white space you see underneath that blue line just shows the cost of all of our goods and services. And our orange line is what we were able to raise to pay for those. So it really just is not keeping pace.
And we're still dealing with that. It's not like it's come down, right? Because those
Correct.
costs
So-
went up. They're still up at that level.
Right,
So,
right.
yeah.
So think about over the last, 5-6 years, you're up 20% in inflation because this is cumulative year
Mhm.
over year. It's not that it was 8% in one year and then it came down to 4%.
Right, we're
It was
stuck at
8%
that.
and then 4% on top
Right.
of that. So we're still feeling the effects of that. Yes. And then this is our historical levies since the tax cap came into effect. And that red line showing the 2%, all of these levies were within the tax cap formula. There was no piercing of the levy in any of these years. So you'll see some real outliers there, that those were years where we had refunding of debt or we had new debt come on for an EPC project. And that's why those years are a little skewed. But those were all within the tax cap. Other revenues account for about $10.2 million of our budget. Not a lot of changes happening here. The biggest change, we're seeing a reduction in interest rates, and that's affecting our revenue. We had a good couple of years where we were making money off of our TAN borrowing, and as our tax money comes in, but we're expecting to see that decrease, and we'll keep an eye on that as we get closer to adopting the budget. Sure.
Yeah, Michelle, the rental of real property, that $200,000, that's rental of the auditoriums and stuff like that? The increase?
It's auditorium, yes, and it's our regular buildings that we lease out to our BOCES. The $2 million, yes, I'm sorry, where it says rental of property, I'm sorry.
I think, Mike, you're asking the increase there
Yeah, the
is,
increase
is really a
rental-
direct
rental-
reflection of what the
rental
administration and
increases
board did by
Right.
renting
Right.
out.
Renting
That's
out
what I
our
was pointing out.
auditoriums,
Right, yeah.
yes,
It's
correct.
both. I guess it's increase in our rents, but also there's
Correct.
the action we took to
start renting out facilities
right.
and
Yes.
really opening it up,
Yes,
right? So
correct.
It's not a
Correct.
it's not a it's only it's a band-aid, but it
Right,
just shows to show
exactly.
we are trying.
And we still may have revisions, hopefully upward on that. This is really going to be that first dance competition season that we're seeing, and we'll see how many companies we get in, and we might be able to increase that. So this revenue summary just will go, is a depiction of the three categories we just went over. We went over state aid, we went over other revenues, and the tax levy. So when we look at those items, we see that we are expecting revenues of $375 million. But on the line below that, you'll see our initial budget on the expenditure side is showing $393 million in expenses. So I didn't take into account on this slide any fund balance or reserves, which are the savings of the districts, which we have used in prior years. So on the next slide, when we look at fund balance and reserves, Mr. Sachs here has been hard at work on his projections for where we're going to end the year. And we do anticipate closing out the 25-26 school year being able to make back we appropriated $3.6 million for this current school year between unassigned fund balance and reserves. We do anticipate being able to make back that when we close the books this year. We had several large one-off items that are adding to our surplus. So if we anticipate covering the full amount that we appropriated for this current school year, that would make that available for the district to use again in the next school year if that were the direction the board wanted to go. So this is just an example of if we finished the school year and we had the $13.5 million to put back into appropriated fund balance. This also shows with the two highlighted fields that we would put about $1 million into what's called our EBLAW reserve, the employee benefit accrued liability. We are anticipating around 28, 29 to have a lot of staff members become first eligible for retirement. And if they were to take that retirement incentive that's in their contract, the payout of their time would come out of this reserve. And we want to ensure that we have enough funds there. Otherwise, it becomes a general fund expenditure.
So you said that you're anticipating being able to put that money back into the reserves, and then we could possibly use it again for our shortfall this year.
Correct.
But the reason why we have, so you've done all of your cutting of everything we could possibly cut at
Not
some
yet.
point.
Not yet. We're still
okay.
doing that.
But in the past few years, you've tightened
Oh,
our
yeah.
belt as much as we can tighten it for the relatively foreseeable future. And then the reason why we have this surplus or whatever is because we had a few, like we sold the property finally and finally got funded for that on Union Avenue. But we're not going to be selling that next year. And we're not going to be able to put it back in. So like, yeah, that money is going to be there and we could use it again. But then we'd have to find some fairy godmother that brings it to us.
Then you'd have
The
to fund
following
it
year,
again the
and
following year.
and the following
Correct. Correct.
Thanks.
Mike.
So just looking at this slide, Michelle, so people understand where it says assigned appropriated fund balance, and you see 9.2, 9.2, 11.903, and then 13.5. If you look at the past budgets, that's the numbers you see inserted for appropriation of fund balance, right? That's like
Correct.
the leftover per year.
That is the use of our savings to close the budget gap.
Right. Well, it's your underrun,
Right.
right? Well, you're underrunning. But in that 13.5, there's obviously a couple of things that perhaps we hadn't anticipated. You said, right? There was
Yes.
So again, if we take the 13.5 and plug that into this year to close the gap for 26 and 27, you would have to make 13.5 again.
In the following year.
And now you have things that you can't guarantee to get back, right? So it's a self-defeating prophecy if you keep doing this.
Right. We would have to make systemic changes, which is what we've been looking to do. We've
Right.
had these conversations with the board and admin, making changes to the way we run things within the district so that we will see those savings going forward. But to the tune of $13.5 million, no, we can't guarantee that.
Right.
This year is a little bit of an anomaly with selling the building and, our state aid coming in higher than we had budgeted because we were based on the governor's budget, not the adopted budget.
But we still don't really have that number's not solid yet, right? The budget hasn't been approved by the.
No, but for 25, 26.
Oh, so-
So
oh, yeah.
now we know our actual aid for 25,
Right.
26 because it's based off of our ST3 when we file our financials. So we're anticipating about $3 million more in aid than we anticipated. And now with the final cost reports that were just processed by the state, our building aid potentially could go up as well. So
In essence, on July 1st, 2026, if we elected to use that whole 13.5, our reserves would actually go down a little bit.
no, that's where you would be on July 1 because when you appropriate fund balance, you have to
Okay.
make that entry on June 30th.
Okay, so that 13.5 would be out.
That's already there. That would be there. That's not out. That's in it. So that's the surplus of closing the books that we're anticipating
Right.
and then putting it back in there. So that's exactly how it would look on July 1.
Oh, okay. Maybe I'm confused. You have the next slide you're going to show?
Using it.
That's how it would look if we didn't use it. Is
So
that what
that's
I'm-
how it would look
is that
if
what
we,
you're getting at?
if we
Yeah, yeah.
use
So
it.
Yeah.
right there, you're taking that 13.5
So
and plug it
if
into the
we-
revenue side.
If we didn't use it, that 13.5 would be in the bottom
Right.
row for unassigned fund balance.
Mhm.
We would have $25 million in unassigned fund balance.
Right.
And there would be that bottom line number would still be the same, right? But you would have a $17 million gap to close.
No, I think what I was getting at is, if you go back, I'm thinking about Brent's going to come, and he's going to show us what our reserves look like and he's going to be unhappy. Yes, Michael, he is. Okay,
He will be unhappy.
he will be unhappy. Yes. Okay, sorry. I'm just pointing out. This is we need systemic changes.
We've been making it through each year, and one of the things, like I said, we're trying to get to is that point, and I believe it is the 28-29 year where we have quite a few of our staff members become first eligible. I think it's something like 60 staff members become first eligible, and that retirement, if they were all to take it, and then we look at positions that can be attritioned or you're replacing at a lower salary, that's when we would really start to see things turning direction.
No, I agree, but
And the year prior to that, I think there's like 40 staff members become first eligible. So it's going to keep increasing for a few years. We just
Mike,
have
if
to
our
get
meeting
there.
was 2 nights ago, it'd be Groundhog's Day, right? Because this is the same conversation we've had for the last 4 years.
well, I'm just saying
right?
you can't rely on
Oh, I know.
the retirements because
Right. They don't
everybody's
have to take
life
it.
circumstances is different, right?
Correct.
So they're not all going to take it, right?
Correct.
Or it could be a really long 3 years, right?
Go ahead, Steph.
Okay.
One of the concerns that piggybacks on what Mike's saying is that we have a $4 million pool issue, and kicking the can down the road hoping for better is when we can't pay for a new pool. You know what I mean? So like I can again, do we want to operate at a $17 million deficit? No. But the other side of it is when stuff like this comes up, we don't have the money to pay for it.
Right.
So we still have to take this as if it's a $17 million deficit.
So again, this is just an example. So if the board wanted to appropriate again the 13.5, we would still have more than a $4 million gap that we would have to cut. And again, we have been tightening our belt the last couple of years, so it just gets a little harder each year.
Go ahead, Mike.
Michelle, one thing, and I don't know if you addressed it already, BOCES reimbursement, is that, we have a number on that? Are we expecting a different
We
number?
haven't received it yet. We do know that it was going to be more than we received last year. BOCES will always tell us not to budget the refund because it's not guaranteed.
Right.
We usually get something every year, but you're really not supposed to budget it. But they anticipate, we budgeted $750,000 for the refund. Last year, they gave us $2.2 million, which is significantly more than we budgeted. And they stressed at our meetings not to budget it because it's not guaranteed. We budgeted $750,000 again this year to be conservative. And they told us at a meeting in the fall that the refund will be more than it was last year. So we're anticipating.
Okay, so that 4.439130 is right now a $750,000 reimbursement calculated.
Mhm.
So if it comes in at
another 1.7 million.
3.75. That
Oh, it won't be that high.
well, okay, 2.750. That would reduce to 2.
Correct.
Right, okay.
Correct.
Okay.
So this is the expenditure codes by object. We saw this chart at the last meeting. The only thing that has changed in here, we did reduce our expenditures by $650,000. Given that interest rates are coming down on what we're earning in our investment accounts, it's almost meeting what the TAN is costing us. So I anticipate next year we will cut the time period that we're holding that TAN just to cut back on the interest. Right now we hold it for the full school year because we're making money off of that. When it becomes that we're paying more than we're receiving, we can set the date on that payback and make it, February or March, and that would cut that interest expense by $650,000. So these are all things that we're looking at. And then next steps, our next meeting, we will focus on the general support expenditure codes and capital project recommendations. And then we'll go through each of our different expenditure categories through the month of beginning of April before we adopt the budget. And anytime there's a revision to something we've already presented, we'll show that in the next presentation. Any questions?
Oh, thank you, Michelle. Any further questions? Okay. Andy, you're almost going into record time for the superintendent's report. We're almost 2 hours.
For the record, I did not put all of the presentations
Okay.
on for this time.
Sorry.
I mean, I'll take the blame for it. That's okay.
It's okay. Anything else, Mr. Larson?
Nope, that's
You
it.
good? Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
All right. All right. Thank you. Great job, everybody, on the presentation. So thank you. Okay. Our students are not here tonight, so we're going to skip section C and go to D, approval of minutes. Can I have a motion, please? Stephanie, second by Rob. Questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Visitors, I think we have one, Mr. Sapienza. Oh, there we go.
Hi, my name is Paul Sapienza. For the public that's left, I'd just like to disclose that last year I was offered and accepted the co-chair position for the legislative committee for this board, but I am not here speaking as that representative of the board today. I'm speaking here as just a citizen and a private individual. I've come to realize after attending many of these meetings, the budget is of great concern, as we just were witnessing just a moment ago to this board. And I read something this week that just disturbed me slightly. I noticed in the paper that the teachers union had sued the SUNY or the state regarding approval of some charter schools. I personally have a problem with some aspects of charter schools. I won't get into that right now. However, one of the items that they listed in the lawsuit was the lack of community involvement in the decision. Years ago, as a union representative going up to Albany and lobbying and so forth on behalf of my members, I got a schooling by one of the legislators. Probably shouldn't have done this, but he said to us one day, think about it. I have two constituents that come in on the same piece of legislation. One's in favor, one's against. I look up and down my list and I see one is given to my campaign and the other isn't. Who do you think I'm going to support on that legislation, the for or the against? Probably the guy that gave me the money. That was honest, but I don't know if I should have had that education. He was actually referring to different special interest groups, being the union or the companies, and who's going to give more money to his campaign. I didn't particularly care for that stiff arm, but it was an education. And I've taken that to mean that even on matters where a politician has a constituents come in, they speak for or against, that's probably in the back of their mind. And one of the things I read in this article was that SUNY defended itself, saying they had a lot of support for these charter schools from a number of local elected officials. Now, I'm not accusing anyone, nor do I assume that anyone gave more money than the other to have that consideration. But the one thing I've experienced in my own life is that I served on my local community board in Queens for 10 years, and the last 2 years as its chair, up to 26 years ago when I moved, about approximately 22 years ago when I moved out here to the island. And much like this board, the community board is made up of community members who are not paid. We're there because we take a strong interest in our community. We don't need contributions. We don't know anything. We don't owe anybody anything. We just act on the benefit of the community. So one of the things that I was outraged when I was reading this article is I didn't see any reference to to school boards having any involvement in the process. I think that's outrageous considering that charter schools have a big effect on your budget. So I'm concerned about that. So as a citizen, I would recommend that the board look to maybe even a legislative solution to that problem. From my own personal experience, as I said on the community board, as an analogy, we used to be tasked with reviewing applications for liquor licenses. They would come into the state liquor authority. They would get referred to the community board. We'd schedule on our agenda, let the public know. The applicant could come before the board and plead their case why they should get a liquor license. The community could come and speak for or against the applicant, and then we would take a vote. I must say, though, however, our role was strictly advisory. We did not have a veto power, but we could just advise what the community wanted. Now, if the community board advised against the liquor license for reasons rooted in law, so for example, there were certain laws on the books that said if the neighborhood is saturated with a particular type of establishment, say a bar, you could object on that basis. There are too many bars in the neighborhood. We don't need another one. Or if the entrance to the establishment that was going to be either selling on premises or off premises liquor, if their entrance to their site was within a certain proximity to the entrance to a church, that's another reason to oppose it.
Mr.
Whenever
Sapienza, I'm sorry. We're
time is over?
Yeah, we're
Whenever
over
we
our 3 minutes.
opposed, they accepted that opposition. So I would recommend the board look to those type of solutions, whether veto or advisory.
Thank you, Mr. Sapienza. No, it's okay. Thank you. Good topic. Okay. Any other visitors, Allison? Okay, great. Action item 3. I'd like to make a motion or have somebody make a motion to table that. Motion by Stephanie, second by Rob. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Takes us to item 4, business items, consent agenda A through G. May I have a motion, please? Motion by Mike, second by Stephanie. Questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Section 5, teachers, personnel teachers, consent agenda A through L. Can I have a motion, please? Motion by Matt, second by Rob. Questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Section 6, personnel support staff, consent agenda A through G. Can I have a motion, please? Motion by Meredith, second by Stephanie. Questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Section 7, contracts, consent agenda A through L. Can I have a motion, please? Motion by Mike, second by Stephanie. Questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Section 8, donations, consent agenda A through B. Motion, please, by Stephanie, second by Sabrina. Questions, comments? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Section 9, budget vote and election, consent agenda A through E. Can I have a motion, please? Motion by Rob, second by Stephanie. Questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Section 10, budget adjustment. Can I have a motion, please? Motion by Stephanie, second by Mike. Questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Section 11, Committee on Special Education, consent agenda A through B. Motion, please, by Matthew, second by Stephanie. Questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Takes us to Section 12, monthly reports, board committee reports. Do we have any for tonight? Any other ones, or just legislative? Just legislative. Okay.
Okay. So, I don't know if I can address the citizens, but we can bring that to the committee. That wasn't discussed by the committee, but I love it. So I would suggest if it's okay by the board, that we discuss something similar to what Paul just recommended.
Yeah, so what you're asking is if the board, if you have agreement from the board to advocate or get it on your sort of charge to put something in place to allow more of a discussion and vote by the community.
Right, or the board have input.
Board have
even.
input.
So it could go either way. We'll discuss it with committee and come back with that if that's okay, because that was new tonight. And then the other new item, could we remove the UPK issue that's humongous on our packet because it's no longer appropriate? Possibly send a thank you letter to try to, make sure that we're acknowledging that our advocacy actually worked. We've been yelling about this for a while, and then replace it with another charge, which could be that, or a bigger animal of charter school.
Yeah. and
Right,
Let's
so-
any feedback from the
Which
board.
is part of what Paul was bringing up. So, but we didn't discuss any of this with the committee. So I don't want to make the decision
Yeah.
for the committee, but we can, if the board's okay with it, I'd like to bring it back to the committee to discuss, if that's okay.
I think they'd be okay because
It was brought
Michelle
up by other.
brought
yeah,
that up,
yeah.
and then other people jumped on and
Yeah,
said that's
it
great.
just, this is, Paul brought up a great point. That's the first, what you just said, even though it was as a citizen, it's so appropriate for the committee, so.
Mr. Larson, do you have a comment?
I would just say before we remove UPK from the charges, just to confirm what the rules are for
Yes, yeah,
the allotment that we
okay.
have.
Yeah.
And once we
Well,
have
we'll
that
wait for that.
confirmation, I think then
Well,
yeah,
everything we've asked for has
Yeah.
been heard.
And maybe we don't remove it, we put it as sort of an appendix to say, hey, we advocated for this, we appreciate what you've done, let's confirm
Absolutely.
it, but keep it on there because it's better that it's out there, right? So-
And then this is a want. Can you guys give us a summary so that I don't have to explain it to our committee? You guys can explain it once it's confirmed.
As far as all the changes to
Yeah,
how
yeah, if
UPK is
that's
being
okay,
funded,
because
absolutely.
I get confused myself and I don't want to misspeak.
As soon as we get confirmation, we can give you a
So
full
once we
summary
get
of
that
how this will work.
confirmation, We can go forward with any kind of thank yous if necessary. With that said, I had a note somewhere and I don't know where I put it. We met with a regional director of PTA. Her first name is Kyle. Her last name's really long, so it begins with a B. A lot of people refer to her as Kyle B. She's an advocate and regional director in New York State PTA. When she heard our date that we were going to Albany, she was like, that's way too late. So we had an emergency meeting and discussed possibly going on March 11th instead. If you guys are okay with that, we could move forward with it and possibly keep the 24th. Her reasoning was all the funding issues are already going to be decided that week. So if we wanted to go and advocate for any budgetary stuff for the governor to consider, we would need to get there earlier than March 24th. The other option we could do is see how successful we are on the 11th, keep the March date, the March 24th date, and then go and advocate for legislation that we've been pushing. So have a dual visit, one on March 11th, one on March 24th. Possibly also move the 24th to a virtual if they would do it. But if you guys are, if the board's okay with that, we would go forward with going up on March 11th as well.
Plus, it allows me to go on the 11th.
Yes,
I wasn't
and
available.
Meredith can go.
And they want me up there in Albany.
Yes,
They
everybody
need you
wants
up
that.
there.
They need to
Right.
see me.
They want you on that line. Yeah, whatever's good for you guys. I don't know.
Okay.
Any questions or issues from the board?
All right, and
Okay.
and so the only other discussion was the the charter school thing. So, because I talked about two things at once before just now, adding charter school as a charge is okay with the rest of the board.
Yeah, I think it's
Okay.
always been out there, right? Just the
It
funding from
was.
it, but this is almost an additional.
Things have
Um,
been, we have unfunded mandates as a charge, which
Mm-hmm.
we're working on, but things are evolving and we're getting more information about different things that we're digging into. So I think now that it seems to be, since we got our original charges, the charter school issue on Long Island is getting worse. So I think we need more attention at it, if that's okay.
And I don't want to put words in Paul's mouth, but I think what he's talking about is when the Board of Regents has that charter school group that approves, that makes approval of their applications, that during, as part of that process should be either our input or a public hearing.
Yeah.
That's what you're referring to,
Yeah.
right? Okay, so prior to the approval of application, the school board that would be impacted, or school boards, I guess it could be school boards, that would be impacted would have input, direct input into the placement of that charter school within its boundaries. That's what we're talking about.
This would have to be discussed with the committee because he just spoke now about it. But I agree 100% with what he's saying. I just don't want to speak for the committee.
Think about how we got sidetracked by the one that snuck in our boundary, right? They were here a couple of years. We had no idea they were coming until they were here. So,
we should have a voice. He's 100% correct. I just can't speak for everybody on the
well,
committee.
we certainly need to be. I forget there's supposed to be a notification that that's happening. But
There is a process.
Yeah, there's
NYSEG currently is fighting is that they went against that process, that they went against local law, local opposition, and any rejection. So they abused the authority and ignored all of that. So the advocacy is that they should be following the law and the approval process for them, and they're not.
Yeah, but
they're just
right. The local school boards, before any approval, should be granted. I don't know how many local school boards are going to think that's a great idea, but before any application for a charter school placement approved, the school boards have to at least acknowledge they've been informed and had a chance to respond. Right? That's what we didn't. We never had that chance. So,
but they have the ones in Brentwood and CI that went highly opposed, and it still passed through. So that's what they're fighting, saying you didn't listen to the voices. It was not wanted in the community widespread, but you went ahead and approved it. Oh, so you're ignoring the law and the procedures that are in place. So this is what needs to kind of be going loud and about, regardless of what our feelings are about charter school. It's just the process now is not even being followed to the law, and that's a huge problem. They're just stamping them and approving them when communities are going through the right process and they are having voices, but they're ignoring the voices. That's the concern that's out there right now.
so yeah, I mean, I'm all for that.
Am I forgetting anything?
I think that was pretty much it.
I'm going to ask just on record right now, just because I will forget to ask, that our legislative committee watches this meeting tonight, because we discussed a lot of issues that would help, with the understanding of everything that the process. So it's 9:00. So I think they need to start watching at 8 is when we started discussing it. So I will just ask them in an email later. And if I don't do it, someone remind me to email everybody later.
Great, thanks, Steph. Any other updates on committees? Nope. Okay. Any closing comments, Allison? Nope. Okay. Section 14, old business. I don't think we have any old business or board discussion items for tonight. Takes us to future discussion items. I know we have one with the pool next week or 2 weeks from now. Let me just throw one other one out there. A board member had brought up the APP issue. What I'd like to see is perhaps maybe at our next meeting, we have Gary and Phil come and present out currently how we do it in the process and give the board an opportunity to kind of ask questions about that. Okay. And anything else for future?
Did something bring that to bear?
Not that I know of, and that's why, it was just brought up and just in conversations with, it's one of those policies, and I think, just in speaking to Mrs. Trombetta, she said perhaps we have Gary and Phil come just explain it to the board and have the board have an opportunity to just ask questions. So we'll do that maybe, next meeting, if that makes sense. Okay. Anything else for future? Okay. All right. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to go into exec session for the purpose of discussion and negotiations. Can I have a motion, please? Motion by Rob, second by Matt. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, everybody. Have a great evening.